Good morning and welcome to the Morning Scoop for Friday, July 9th. This is your daily Buckeye fix. I'm Tom Orr. The Minnesota game is in 55 days, the game against Michigan in 141 days. One of the fun things about being a Buckeye Scoop is that we have an enormous team of insiders and recruiting analysts who have decades of experience and a ton of connections all across the country, and who all work together to put together cool projects like the Scoop 100, which is their ranking of the 100 best 2022 football recruits in the nation. And they just dropped the first part of a new project this week. Their all-camp team, Bill Green and Mark Givler worked with Mick Walker. I'll learn you guys' names eventually to put that project together. It's a run through of the best performances that they saw at Ohio State football camp throughout the month of June. Mick is my guest this morning. Mick Walker, not Mick Givler, whoever that might be. Mick, what made you guys decide to do something like that?
Yeah, it's interesting because we show up each day at 8 a.m., whatever it is. Check-in starts at 9, but we show up at 8. We all sit there. We all mess with all the other beat guys. You know what I mean? It's having fun. It's why you came out. But we sit there and we talk about it and we go, oh, it's going to be a slow camp day. And then you sit there and go, all right, slow camp day means 2 4-star wide receivers. Like you go through the list of each camp day. And we did, I have to double check because this is just offense, what we've done recently, but we did defense. And I think we had to put 6 names down. And so what Mark did was he emailed both Bill and I, and we put together a list. And I know we had to put 5 names down for the defensive line, and cutting it down to 5 on that group was just insane to sit there and comb through. Same with like the wide receivers, because you were there for that day. We could literally go down to just the day itself, what it was of Brandon Ennis. And I think that's what it ended up being. It was that one camp day where we had Brandon Ennis, Carnell Tate, Anthony Brown. The talent pool at Ohio State is just very loaded when it comes to these camps. And you have 3-star guys with MAC offers that most camps that people would be interested in seeing. And we're going, yeah, he's a good prospect, but he's not Ohio State's level. And so that's why I just sort of we sat there and went down at the end of the camp. We were like, we need to find another way to make sure we can talk about all these guys. And that's how the all camp team came together.
So how did you guys actually judge who made the team? Like, was this just based purely on your 3 scouting looks? Did you get input from sources you guys may talk to? Like, how did you actually go about putting the team together?
Yeah, so Mark emailed all of us, and we sort of aggregated from there, sort of pulled from there and saw how it went. And Mark put it together to put the actual team of what Bill said, what I said, and he said, and what Mark himself said. And that's how the team was. It was all based on us 3 at Scoop, just how the Scoop 100 is based on everything that Mark and Bill see. As an independent site, we try and keep it to the independent information here. So that's why we kept it just us 3, and that's who came up with the Scoop all Ohio State camp team.
So you guys just dropped the offense this week. So let's start with the quarterbacks, because everyone wants to start with the quarterbacks. You named 2 of them. But it seems like of those 2, Jaden Davis is probably the more likely to end up at Ohio State. He's a 2024 prospect. Let people know what you saw from him to put him on that team.
Elite. It's just probably the best quarterback performance we saw all summer was Jadyn Davis when he showed up. We do have to factor in that he had that insane wide receiver group that day, but still, it's just the ball coming off of his hand was next level. And there was talk coming in that Ohio State was already going to go hard at 24 quarterbacks because they offered Adrian Pose, the kid out of Monsignor Pace down in Miami, Florida, a few weeks earlier at a different camp because they liked what he saw. But Davis was the guy coming in that everybody wanted to see, everybody wanted to hear about, and he completely backed that up. That he was at camp, showed why Ohio State wanted to see him. He actually worked out both sessions. Ryan Day had prior obligations, the afternoon session where the quarterbacks would have been. So Ryan Day came out during the actual lineman camp session and worked with Jaden Davis a little bit with Corey Dennis to make sure he got individual work. And I think that really tells you everything you needed to know. There was guys that came in the afternoon that wanted to work with Ryan Day and have him be seen by him, but he wanted to work with Jaden Davis. And I think that's all I really need to say there.
Yeah, that's the kind of the flip side of the, don't listen to what the recruits say. Look at what they do. Like, look at what the Ohio State coaching staff does. That tells you an awful lot about where their priorities lay. That is a pretty good piece of information there on where Ohio State's priorities may lay with quarterback recruiting. The running backs, there was a ton of talent that we saw over the course of the month, but Trayon Webb, Richard Young, those are different types of backs. Those are the 2 guys you picked. Can you share a scouting report on them? They're both 2023 guys. Do you think they could both end up in the same class like how Travion Henderson and Evan Pryor did this year?
I think it's something. So you mentioned those 2 names, and I'll lump Brandon Ennis here for this one point. Those 2 have been playing youth football, have been playing together since the youth football stages of their career. So these are three guys that really want to try and play together and spend some time together. I don't see it all happening. I think they can honestly all end up at different schools, especially since Treyon's supposed to play together in July. But if you're just talking from a pure commit to a school in July, if you're talking from a pure fit standpoint, they definitely could. If we were to ask really anybody who knows a little bit about football about what they would think a running back would look like, it'd be Richard Young. He is the scouting report on what a running back should be and what a running back should look like. Treyon Webb's a little bit of a different. He's a little bit of a thinner guy. He goes both ways down there at Trinity, so he's an interesting prospect. But he's probably more of a speed, maybe a sort of an H-back guy that you can move around a little bit in the backfield. But Richard Young is the guy that you could give him 20 carries, whatever it is in the game, and he's going to go for it. He'd be a great match if you're going Travion Henderson, Dallin Hayden, Richard Young. That'd be a great 3-year stretch after Tony Alford could only land Mayan Williams that 1 year.
Yeah, and Mayan Williams seems like he's turning out okay too. So Tony Alford's not doing so bad, is he? And we'll let you mentioned the 3 wide receivers earlier. We'll let people go to the site to read about those 3 guys. You've kind of heard the names at least. And one of them could be very close to landing an Ohio State offer. So that's worth keeping an eye on as well. But do check out that all camp team at BuckeyeScoop.com. I did though want to talk about the tight end, Theo Mellon, because he is like, we saw a lot of kids over the course of the month of June. He's one that like immediately it's not like, wait, who is he again? Like he's from Sweden. Number 1, that stands out. Number 2, so doesn't have a ton of football experience, but just super athletic, really intriguing frame. One of, frankly, the most intriguing prospects I think we saw all month. Let people know about Theo Mellon.
Yeah, so it's funny. Brandon Collier is the guy that brought Theo over. He runs PPI recruits over in Europe, and he's the guy that brought Theo over. And he came up to me because we had talked before at a few other Ohio State camps, and he had sat there and said, "You're going to want to talk to this guy beforehand because we're going to have to get out of the Ohio State camp right after it ends, and we're not going to have time to talk." I was like, "Okay, he seems like a guy. He's got some offers. I'll talk to him." And by the end of the camp, it was just like you understood why. And I remember talking to Mark and Bill after, like, "All right, can we get Theo?" I was like, "No, we got Theo, so that's fine." But he is next level good, and it's Brandon Collier brought over Hero Canoe too, who will be on the defensive all camp list. I'll give you one preview there. He'll be on that. But these are 2 guys that Brandon Collier has talked about, has hyped up for a while, and Theo and Hero both lived up to it. Theo was a guy. He was the best pass catcher at the camp that day, and it wasn't really much of a debate. Especially, and then he even adds more intrigue when you talk about overall. Ohio State really brought in a ton of interesting tight ends in 23 to work out and just sort of see what's going on, because it seems like maybe after taking 2 in 22, don't be surprised if they maybe try and stretch 2 in 23. And Theo's a guy that if you're looking at 1 and then maybe a developmental project, he's a 1. He's an alpha guy that you want in the class, and you can get another developmental guy after because he's got the total package of skills, and he's not just some interesting story from Sweden. He's a dude, and if he ends up as a high 4-star prospect, do not be surprised by that. And he'll probably, when we get to the Scoop 100 in 2023, don't be surprised if he's on that as well.
Yeah, growing up in Sweden, you assume that's probably not someone who's been playing football since he was 5 years old. So there's probably a lot more growing to do still in terms of his awareness of the game and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, a lot of really intriguing potential there. On the offensive line, you obviously named 5 guys to the team. That's how a football team works. But I'm just going to ask about one of them. People can go read about the rest at Buckeye Scoop. Luke Montgomery is one of the top prospects in the class of 2023 out of Findlay. I know a bunch of Ohio State fans are worried right now. You don't have to look very far on our Ohio State, on our Ask the Insider board to have people worrying about, in-state guys going somewhere else after Brennan Vernon committed to Notre Dame. So how much concern is there about Montgomery potentially not coming to Ohio State? And, also whoever he signs with, what kind of players are they going to be getting? Yeah,
so another thing you can do is you can check out my mapping out the 2023 class piece that I posted on Buckeye Scoop a few days ago. And we sort of got into what the roadblock was when it comes to why Brandon Vernon ended up at Notre Dame. And he's a guy, and Marcus Freeman, a former Ohio State linebacker, a guy that's one of the top coaches, assistant coaches in the country. He's going to appear back in this Luke Montgomery recruitment, and it's going to be something to watch. I'll say it here because he didn't. Mike Montgomery, who's Luke's father, told me the most charismatic and energetic coach that he saw all throughout their June visit swing was Marcus Freeman. And I'll agree on that from talking to Coach Freeman a few times before at different camps and visits and whatnot. But as for if Luke ends up going somewhere else, it's just even with that comment from his dad, even with how much he visited, it's just hard to see Luke leaving. He's a guy that has grown up wanting to play at Ohio State. He's a guy that loved working for Coach Stud down here in down in Columbus. He fits exactly what they want from a player. And he's a guy that they sort of want to be this. There's not going to be a quarterback. There's not going to be a Quinn Ewers that says, come play with me in 23. Luke's going to be a guy that through the basketball circuit that we'll talk about later. He knows just about everybody countrywide, whether that's football recruits, basketball recruits. And he's going to be a face of a recruiting class kind of guy, even as an offensive tackle. Because much like I said in my piece, much like CJ Hicks before him and then Jack Sawyer before even CJ, they know everybody, they talk to everybody, and people want to talk to them. As for the player that they're any college would be getting in Luke, he's a guy that's really a ton of ceiling. But even if you go on the Buckeye Scoop YouTube channel, you can see Kirk breaking down some of his one-on-one clips there for some video content. And he's very raw at this stage, but he's still very talented. He had 2 great defensive linemen there, and Brandon Vernon and Derek LeBlanc going one-on-one, and he looked the part. He played the part. This is a guy that if you give him the proper coaching, which despite his recruiting knacks, when you talk about Greg Stradwara, has shown he can give the proper coaching, you give him that development, and Luke could be a very special kid here in a few years when the NFL draft is coming around.
Yeah, he's still relatively new to the tackle thing, but you can see it there. You could see improvement just throughout the morning with him, which is, that's really impressive. If you like noticeable improvement just in the span of a couple hours. So yeah, that is definitely one to watch. You mentioned basketball. Let's talk a little basketball. We haven't talked too much basketball recently. You just dropped a new Mick Knight column this week because you are always busy and always working. So that one was focused on a 2022 big man with a very unique name who may be trending towards Ohio State. That's, big man is kind of a neat area of need for Chris Holtmann right now. So what is the latest on 4-star center Favor Air?
Yeah, this is a guy that Tony dropping the ball, missed the Tony Skin press conference. But for anybody that has sort of been able to keep an eye on what happened, I got to go there, ask a few questions at the Tony Skin press conference, and he's a guy that's playing a role here for Favor. Favor's a guy from the Maryland area who has ties to the DMV thing, and that's where Skin thrives on when it comes to recruiting. He knows just about everybody there. Can't go in the DMV area without talking about Tony Skin and basketball. And he had a prior relationship before he got to Ohio State. He's working that relationship now. I don't believe they got him on campus. I'm working on confirmation on that. I don't believe he got on campus in June. Don't be surprised if they fit him in that last week of July when visits sort of open up, just to sort of see how he is. But Coach Holtmann saw him in the June live period with his high school team over at Bishop McNamara in Maryland. Tony Skin was there to see him live. Ryan Peden, who after Terry Johnson left, is sort of bumped into the big man coaching room. He's down in Birmingham, Alabama this weekend checking out Favor. So this is a guy that automatically, just through the relationships, I think Skin sort of brought the guy up, showed that they had a relationship, and now they're sort of parsing through the big man board. But don't be surprised if Favor went from nobody knowing him to sort of right up near the top because of the skill set he can provide.
Well, another 2022 center whose name they've been linked to recently is Terrace Reed. Do you have a sense for how seriously Ohio State is looking at him right now?
It's hard because there were so many big men on campus in June. There were so many visits in general. But he's a guy that from what I've heard, he's a guy that Ohio State is really sort of trying to focus in around, sort of see if they can get their foot in the door and even work higher up on the board. Depending on who you talk to, they really like their position with Terrace. And we talked about Ryan Peden being on the road in Birmingham, Alabama this weekend. There's a short list of guys that Coach Holtmann will see this weekend during the live period, and Terrace is one of those guys that he wants to catch live, which says something about who he is, because there's only a certain amount of hours, certain amount of days that they can spend doing this. So to devote part of it to see Terrace is important. He's a guy that I haven't really been able to talk to. He's a guy I want to talk to, but at this point, I think he's a guy with Favor that you might throw at the top of the board and really begin looking at.
All right. Well, we plugged the Mick Knight column earlier on Favor Air. That's worth checking out. That's on our Ask the Insiders board. Mick also mentioned earlier a fantastic piece he wrote called Mapping Out Ohio State's Path to the 2023 Recruiting Class. That one is free on BuckeyeScoop.com. So head over to BuckeyeScoop.com. Check that one out. That one posted, I think, Wednesday evening sometime. So you may have to scroll down the front page a little bit, but that is very much worth your time. Really, really good, informative update on that 2023 class. Mick does good work. We like Mick. We like having Mick around. He does good work and is always out doing something, always scouting someone, always talking to someone. So
There's more
Appreciate
Mick Knight on the board right now. If you'd like to, it's going to be a day postponed. Obviously, since this podcast is going to come out tomorrow. Stopped at Lakota West the other day. Talked to Jair Brown, Tashabola. Won't get into it too much, but you can find out some more about those guys on the board. Speaking of more on the Ask the Insiders board.
See, I'm not kidding. When I say Mick is constantly in motion and constantly doing stuff, there you go. Something I hadn't even seen that already. That's fantastic. I'll give that a 2 thumbs up already because haven't even read it, but Mick does good work. Mick always gets great insight from players. So fantastic having you on again. It's been a while. Glad to have you back on the Morning Scoop. Thank you for joining me. And make sure you check out all of that great stuff at BuckeyeScoop.com. Members get access to our Ask the Insiders board, and even more, you get to check out Mick's site. Mick's mapping out Ohio State's 2023 recruiting class thing for free. Members get to see even more on our Ask the Insiders board. That's just one example of all the great content you get at BuckeyeScoop.com. Also, make sure you check out all of our great podcasts, all of our great interviews, all of our great camp highlights, all of that stuff on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/BuckeyeScoop. Just hit subscribe, and then you can click on that little bell, and you'll even get notified when we post a new video. That way you never miss something, you never have to wait. You're never wondering, did they post anything? You'll get just a little ding on your phone notifying you, hey, there's some great new content from Buckeye Scoop on YouTube right now. It's always free. All you have to do is go youtube.com/BuckeyeScoop, click on subscribe, and then click on that little bell to get notified. And that's it. Pretty easy. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you on Monday.